keep or trade Brandon Aiyuk, although you can certainly call up and say, no, trade Debo. Or, I don't know. I know what the fans' reaction, no, just pay everybody. I don't know if you can, especially if you follow our next guest on Twitter, Bucky Brooks, former NFLer, NFL Network. You know all his work, and we love having him on. And he hates Brandon Aiyuk, right? Like you trade this guy for a bag of rocks, right?
Oh, I thought you were just leading in. I thought you were just trying to set it up, trying to get everybody frothy before I came on. No, I wouldn't trade Brandon Aiyuk. Look, I think he's a really good player. I think I understand exactly what he and Debo and all those guys are. Brandon Aiyuk is a top player. Brandon Aiyuk is fighting for the marquee as the number one receiver for the 49ers. But the Niners have to make a choice because it's hard to have two high-priced wide receivers, a high-priced tight end, a high-priced left tackle, pass rushers galore, and all of those things. So what they got to figure out is if they're going to run it back this year, and they don't have to pay Brandon Aiyuk right now. They have time. They just got to figure out who is the real number one receiver. You can make the case that Brandon Aiyuk is the number one receiver based on him having 1,300 yards, 28 catches of over 20 yards, the big plays that he made, but you're paying Deebo Samuel like he's the number one. They got to figure out what's the true pecking order of the passing game before they can determine whether they're going to pay Brandon Aiyuk or not.
Does part of this also factor in the issue that they don't really throw the ball that much? They threw the ball the 32nd most in football. Does that make you even more cautious about paying two guys this much?
No, I don't think it is that. I just think like what you got to do is if you're the 49ers, you got to figure out who are the essential pieces to the program. And I'm saying like Brandon Aiyuk can be an essential piece, but what are you going to give up? Because remember, I said the two wide receivers, the tight end. I forgot you got the running back too, and Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
You cannot have all of the money on that side of the ball and not give up something. So you have to just figure out what are the essentials, who you willing to move. Brandon Aiyuk is probably a more rounded wide receiver than Deebo Samuel, but Deebo does so much for this offense. Can you afford to move on from him and give it all to Brandon Aiyuk?
Okay, Bucky Brooks with us. There's a bunch of stuff. Let's back up and go back to your social media from 3 days ago, which got everybody going. And would you explain to our audience what you were saying? Because I think you've gathered this now. The normal 49er fan thought was Deebo Samuel is this wild card who does a bunch of stuff, but the traditional good route runner is Brandon Aiyuk. And then you shook everybody up by coming in and going, no, neither one of them are great route runners.
No, what I said, they're not polished route runners. So here's the thing. The 49ers have an offense that is all catch and run based, meaning they want to put the ball in the hands of the playmakers and let them run around. Most teams are afraid to play the Niners in man-to-man because of all the pre-snap shifting, all the condensed formations, and all of the myriad of things that Kyle Shanahan does. So what you get is Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle catching the ball in space on the move so they can run and utilize all the punt return skills that are in the background. What I'm saying is when the Chiefs and when other teams like the Cleveland Browns line up and play man-to-man, nose-to-nose, the San Francisco 49ers, that's not their strength in terms of their wide receivers. And so everyone pushed back like, oh, you're saying Brandon Aiyuk sucks. No, he's a good route runner. I'm saying that when we talk about the best of the best, winning one-on-one, him, Deebo Samuel, and all those guys, it's been proven. They don't win against the elite corners based on what they did last year. So they have to understand that that's a part of the game that either Cal has to help them get over by stacking and moving and doing some other stuff. You just have to know what they are. They can be elite receivers because, by all accounts, Brandon Aiyuk was an elite receiver last season. But with the route running part of it, particularly against press and man and all those things, it's still an area where they have to win. And before you hit me with the analytics and space and all that other stuff, when you look at the tape tells you they struggle against man-to-man teams.
I had charts, I had stats, I had DVOA and EPA, Bucky, but I'm going to put that aside because I like talking to a guy who watches the tape. But my question for you is, how many teams can really play that press man, and how many teams actually do play the man-to-man that we saw from Kansas City in the Super Bowl?
All right. Well, I mean, the teams that they play, like the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs, they play man-to-man. So, like, if you're the 49ers, you're not measuring yourself against the bottom feeders. You're not measuring yourself against the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons and some of those teams. It's the best of the best. So what you have to do is figure out, okay, if we match up against those elite teams that have elite corners, can our guys on the outside win and win consistently? Right now, we can look at the numbers. We can look at where they played. They haven't been able to do it. So the challenge is to Aiyuk, and guys took Aiyuk out of it, but Samuel, can he win versus man-to-man? I'm saying that's the number one thing. That'll be the question when it comes down to paying them and all of those stuff. If they're going to continue to run the offense back the way that they run it, those guys have to win man-to-man coverage because everyone is going to copy what the Browns did, they're going to copy what the Chiefs did, and they're going to challenge those guys to win man-on-man coverage.
Okay, so Bucky, I'm gonna put thoughts in your head then. What you're telling me is that you can't put $50 million into these two players based on the skill set that they've shown, at least so far. So if that's the case, what would you do?
Well, I don't know if you have to do anything right now with Brandon Aiyuk. Like, I know there's a rush, but, like, he still has the fifth-year option to play on, right? I think he still has the fifth-year option before he's not free. So what you do is you make him play on the option, and then eventually you figure it out. Because let's be honest, after next year, they're going to have to reset the entire program. Because after next year, they're going to have to pay the quarterback if the quarterback continues to play like that. So once you pay the quarterback, you can't pay everybody else. And so that's the time where you have to reset the entire team.
Yeah, but Bucky, he's not showing up without a new deal.
Okay, you know what happens?
Yeah, I know.
This is why. Because, Mark, you're so nice. But guess what? The CBA has things in it where if he doesn't show up, it would be very punitive to his pocketbook.
I understand.
So we can sit here and act like that, and we can play tough like, no, we got to pay him or he won't show up. If you're not in a situation where you can pay everybody, you just have to hold off and you got to wait and see because you're going to have to make a determination. It's going to be Debo or Brandon Aiyuk because when you pay the quarterback, because Brock is not going to pay for less than $1 million in his fourth year. You're going to have to pay him. And so when he gets up into that $40, $50 million range, somebody has to suffer. So I don't know if I could pay him right now because you still got others, unless you're going to cut Eric Armstead, reduce his number down. So then you have Brandon Aiyuk. So all of that stuff plays with it.
Yeah, and Drake Greenlaw is another guy that they might, it'd be tough emotionally, but they might end up cutting him as well. And some talk about maybe Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, as well. Do you think that we're in a spot in the league, Bucky, that the Kansas City Chiefs have shown other teams what you can do to stop this Niner offense?
Well, I think you certainly have to look at it. They had an issue with the man coverage. The thing about the Niners, they've always been able to exist because of the way they play, the real tight, condensed formations, the crossing routes, the running game. You want to play zone against that because you're scared that the communication issues and the potentials of picks and rubs will create big play opportunities. But the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns showed that you can play man-to-man against them. So there are going to be other teams that try and take that blueprint and formula and do it. Now, Kyle Shanahan do a great job of kind of like adjusting to the adjustments, but they're going to see more man coverage because it has been a thorn in their side when teams have been able to do it.
Bucky Brooks with us, Willard and Dibbs. Do you have any issue with the way the whole Steve Wilks thing played out?
The only issue that I have with it was, like, if it was an ill fit, and like I think the troubling part is right after the Super Bowl, the players didn't take any accountability for their part and the team's loss. Cal didn't appear to take any accountability for any of those things, and then they just fired the defense coordinator. I will say with Wilks, but man, he was a man on an island because when you bring a new leader in, but you keep all the assistants up under him that are used to a different style under Saleh and Ryans, it's going to be hard for that guy to fully function running a system that's not his system. It's like me having you come to my house, but I say, Mark, you got to speak to my kids in Spanish if you don't know Spanish. So you're trying to keep up and learn Spanish on the fly. That's what Steve Wilks was doing. Kyle Shanahan wanted him to run the system that was in place, and he's never called a game in that system. So there's going to be some rough moments when it comes to that, and he never got a chance to, like, without resistance, put his own signature on the defense.
I'd have walked right in there and have been like, hola, Paquito Brooksies. I'd have done it. I'd have tried. But you're right. You're right. It probably would have been clunky. All right, so wait, but circle back on this, Bucky. Play it out with me, because I know what you're saying. The Niners have leverage, but you also don't want to play the first 5 games without Aiyuk, or you don't even want what Bosa did with the Niners last year, where it goes up to 2 days before the first game of the year. Like, How would you actually handle this? You're suggesting the Niners just say, Brandon, you've got to play, and if he misses a few games or doesn't play up to par, oh well, because like you said, this kind of feels like a huge year for the Niners to finally take advantage of what they've got.
I mean, it's the final year they can do it, because after this year they got to reset it. But you got to look at the other things. What are you willing to part with to make sure that Brandon Aiyuk is happy? Are you willing to part with some of the people on the defensive front? We're going to reduce Eric Armstead's salary. We're going to figure out a way to exist without re-signing or doing anything with Chase Young. But we're going to make sure that our offense is able to get it done. But when you look at their team is built on the offense and the defensive line. And I just think it's going to be tough to keep everybody happy. High-price running back, one high-price receiver, tight end, fullback, left tackle. I mean, there are a lot of things where you're paying. I just don't know if you can continue to pay another wideout.
Bucky, I know you're in New Orleans. Where is Siri taking you right now?
Oh, we're leaving the HBCU Lakers game. We're going back to the hotel, just kind of hanging out with my buddies.
In 1.5 miles,
good spot to do it.
Nice.
All right, Bucky. Thank you for coming on. Bay Area doesn't hate you.
I mean, look, the Bay Area, I don't understand why, they think I have something against the Niners, the Warriors. I love the Bay.
You do have something against the Warriors. No, you're a Laker fan.
I'm not a Laker fan. I don't like the Lakers.
Is your son a Laker fan, yes or no? And do you bring him to games, yes or no?
I mean, he does like LeBron, so I do bring him on occasion.
So that's automatic. I'm sorry, you don't get. Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Understand. I just felt like I woke up and there was violence in my Twitter mentions, and I was like, "What is going on?"
Well,
every Bay Area fan is upset and mad. Feelings are hurt. And I'm like, man, it's like a week away.
It's too soon, Bucky. It's too soon. And you came down the road of the one thing that we love the most about Brandon Aiyuk, his route running. Oh, those routes.
Okay, but I singled the group out. I didn't cite him by name. I said the group there. I use pronouns.
Well, he's the only one who runs routes. Debo just gets the ball and runs and goes crazy, and Juwan Jennings and Chris Conley, those aren't really guys that we really care about like that.
We're a sensitive group right now, Bucky. We're a sensitive group.
Very.
Very, very sensitive. I'm worried about what's going on in the Bay Area.
And you should be.
Worried about
you should be. It rains every day, and we can't win the big one, Bucky.
Now that is time for another conversation, because now I'm beginning to worry, why they can't seal the deal. They've had multiple opportunities to get this done where they've had leads, and this team is built for it. I don't understand what's going on, and it only gets harder.
Yep. Because
now you have an older team playing on a win or go home situation next year. Man, I don't know. There haven't been many teams that have gone from runner-up to champion the next year.
And no coach has ever lost 2 and then gone on to win 1. So when you say they, don't you really mean he, as in Kyle Shanahan?
I mean, look, the pressure's on him, right? The pressure's on because now I don't disagree with what he did in overtime. And here's why I say that. The defense was just coming off a 10 or 11-play drive. They were absolutely gassed. If they go right back on the field, Pat Mahomes goes right down the field against a tired defense with no pass rush.
Thank you.
So I understand that part of it. The thing that is more kind of damning is the players acting like, what?
Yes.
I didn't know. It's like my kids. I told y'all can't have desserts after what? What? I didn't know. With Snicker bar all on the side of their mouth and stuff like that. What? What are we doing? I don't understand how they don't understand the OT rules. And then they said, oh, no one ever told us. What?
Yeah, but no, Bucky, you just now you know why your Twitter mentions are a hot mess, is because we've been walking around peacocking for 6 months. Not only do they got the best roster in football, but this is a group that loves being together and it's buttoned up. This is tight. And then the second the Super Bowl ended, we're this looked like a house of cards. Aiyuk is crying. Nick Bosa is saying we weren't prepared. Kyle Juszczyk doesn't know the rules. Steve Wilkes is fired. The whole thing to us felt like it was a fake Hollywood backdrop all of a sudden.
It does feel like that. And I am worried that until the team, coaches and players just kind of own the shortcomings and just say, hey, man, we just came up short. We didn't get it done. We got to do better or whatever. I wonder about them coming back. And the Steve Wilkes thing is just part of, like Nick Bosa saying, like, hey, the players, we weren't prepared, all that other stuff that took place throughout the year where the players are kind of taking veiled shots at the coach and the style and those things. I just worry about all of that other stuff, particularly when it appears that the next defensive coordinator is going to be an internal hire. Are they going to respect someone at the front of the room that has not called a game before? Because if it's an internal candidate, that's what you're looking at.
That's the word on the street, huh? Internal?
Well, yeah, because Kyle has said he wants the same system, the same style of play, the things that have allowed their players to be blue-chip players. He doesn't want to change that. Or you can't bring somebody from the outside in unless you can bring Pete Carroll. You can bring Pete Carroll in to run the system that they run.
What about
somebody inside?
What about Brandon Staley?
Oh, man. You talk about fun. Man, Brandon Staley and Kyle Shanahan, you talk about the arrogance that Brandon Staley displayed when he was with the L.A. Chargers, and he's going to take over that defense. And oh my God,
yeah!
I appreciate you using the A word because that's always been a little bit of a trigger for my partner. The arrogance of Kyle Shanahan.
Well, but I
like that though. Like,
arrogance doesn't bother me.
Arrogance is fine. That doesn't bother me. Like when you win, like you can be arrogant.
Yeah.
And those things. Like all that stuff is fine.
All right, Bucky, we'll let you go, man. Thank you, brother.
All right, man. Talk to you.